Hey there, it's a Dad Who Games, and thanks for stopping by to check out my speed build video for the insanely terrifying survival horror video game Visage and The Sims 4. In the game, you wake up in the house with no memory or knowledge of why you're there or what's going on. But through incredibly thorough exploration and super sleuthing, you discover an intertwining tale of sorrow, death, and Milton-level pandemonium. I mean, if I were to be trapped in purgatory, this is what I'd imagine it to be. Oh, and the ghosts, many nightmare-fueling spirits that are on the surface just chasing to kill you, but often are actually just directing you in their own twisted fashion to a particular goal. But mostly they're trying to kill you. But some are downright terrifying. No, I mean, I screamed like a baby when these things started to... Well, it's just scary. But without throwing out too many spoilers about the game, it's set up in different chapters of the house's traumatic past. In each chapter, the house changes in different ways to reflect whoever had been living there. Because there's only so many NoCC assets that are provided through The Sims, I knew I wouldn't be able to perfectly recreate the house like I did for Resident Evil. So I like to think of this as like another chapter in the house, like another family, another whoever who now owns the house, and this is what it looks like when their trauma strikes. But what I'm really trying to say is I just took the floor plan and did what I wanted with the house because, well, keep watching and you'll see why. But the floor plan. Oh, the floor plan. The layout of this house is very odd in sections, and one would benefit from a map as you explore and run for your life. But alas, there is none. But thankfully, DubTheeBustocles over on Reddit drew out the floor plan. All of my video game location builds revolve around using an accurate map. And with how this house incorporates multiple split-level aspects, these hand-drawn layouts were immensely helpful. So you could tell as the floor plan unfolds in this video how strangely the house is laid out. Because of the split-level nature of the house, this build totally tested my platform game. It all ended up with the basement of the house being on the first floor of the lot. So there isn't anything in the black abyss of the lower levels. It's all above ground. When I initially had been playing this game, I had been doing all the building and recording for my Resident Evil videos. Having done those builds, I couldn't help but think about what would this house be like to try to build it in The Sims. The biggest challenge was that throughout the house there's so many full, half, and even quarter-sized staircases scattered throughout the house. Thankfully, upon tackling this build, I had become well versed in the placement of platforms. And I mean, I have some huge and some super tall platforms here to essentially make each single Sim story floor into 2 floors of this house. So I was stoked for the build once I finished the shell and exterior. But the inside, I actually nixed all the footage I had of decorating the interior because I had 2 full design attempts that simply were cringe and depressing because the first attempt was me trying to be as accurate as possible to the game style. But you just can't. The incredible detail found in the game, it's just simply not possible in The Sims 4 without CC, and even then, I'm pretty sure you would have a hard time pulling it off. So after fully attempting the accuracy check, I deleted it all to start fresh with a Visage-inspired interior. That's how the whole next chapter mindset was born. I mean, anyone who has ever played the game will be able to look at this house and be like, oh, that's the house from Visage. In hindsight, the style that I ended up using was me calling to mind the house Drew Barrymore was in during the opening scene of the original Scream, a generic house from the 90s. We'll take a tour of the interior later in the video. Alright, I like to think of myself as a survival horror video game connoisseur, if I were to go the Fraser Crane route. But I just mean that I'll play them all. I have seen other YouTubers and Twitch streamers play the game before, but it was back in, I guess it was early access when there was only 1 chapter to play. But now, like in full release, there's like, I think 5 chapters? It seemed interesting, but I honestly forgot about it until I saw it on Game Pass. Then I was intrigued. It looks phenomenal in the hyper-realistic style that we all really fell in love with when we played the Silent Hills playable teaser trailer PT, whatever it was called, the thing that Guillermo del Toro and Hideo Kojima and the guy with the greasy hair and the motorcycles and the pew 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 pew, the crossbows, Norman Reedus. That fiasco that ended in a cancellation and destroyed hopes and dreams of those of us wanting another Silent Hill game. But then there is the other game that totally picked up that hype train for themselves, Resident Evil 7. That game was also hyper-realistic and terrifying. So I was immediately excited to immerse myself in this game. And man, the whole aesthetic of the gameplay itself, the unfolding of the stories. If you like gruesome stories and terrifying ghosts, you must play this. Like, it's not even a question for you to consider. Go, buy it, play it. It's phenomenal. And incredibly hard. I mean, although some of the challenges were purely cheap, like when you mouse over something in the game, usually like the little arrow turns into like a grabby hand or something, but that's not true when you have to get a sledgehammer. And like this sledgehammer, like you need it to progress through the game. And if you don't get this sledgehammer, you'll be spending hours upon hours. Trust me. Just roaming around trying to figure out the game. But you can click on the sledgehammer. It just doesn't show the little grabby hand. So you still have to click on it to get that. Yes, that might have been a spoiler. Or a vital tip in having a happy gaming experience. But yes, the game is just challenging on its own because of one simple aspect of the game. You must look at every little detail. Some are incredibly easy to miss, and all I have to say is, when the time comes for you to watch VHS videos, everything is a clue. Getting back to the build, I had to call upon my innate abilities of landscaping to address the fact that the technical second floor was actually this house's first floor. But since you can't raise the ground flush against walls, I made a bunch of floors colored to look like dirt to extend out over the steep inclines raising the ground made. I wasn't too concerned with how it turned out on the outside because you never see it in the game. And I knew that I was just going to design it as I saw fit. So that means all of my usual go-to landscaping fillers. And that includes the back deck, the pool, and the pond. The star of the show is the house itself, but I had to make it look snazzy on the outside. For the actual design of the house's exterior, I again kept in mind the generic modern styles of the 90s. I had just been coming off my McMansion build, and what with me having been a teen in the 90s, I felt and still feel that the design matches what I'd expect to see in the game. You can also tell how strange the floor plan is by how the exterior looks. I guess this is a sort of McMansion after all. So I keep telling you about this game, but let me show you some side-by-sides of the video game versus what I did in The Sims. The biggest aspect that I really couldn't recreate in The Sims was the lighting in the game. There is a layer of darkness that simply can't be recreated in The Sims. Plus, there's so many unique decorations and general messiness that after beating myself up trying to recreate it, I just went for making it look good with what I had to work with. Putting the images side by side speaks more to the challenge than words alone. So, I have been blessed with full-time employment in the real world. And so, unfortunately, that translates to many few and far between video releases for me on my channel. But I will be regularly making more content. I just, I can't retire on YouTube yet. But that's where you come in. I'm trying my absolute best to bring you some top-notch content. And your likes, comments, and especially the subscribes can really help me in making content that you would like to see. You might also check me out on Twitch when I go live next. Well, as much as I would love to have included the trials and tribulations of my fussing with interior design, you will have to just be satisfied with a royalty-free musical foray through the cursed halls of the Visage house. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed yet another epic video game based location Sims build. I absolutely love making them, and by all means, if you have any suggestions for another video game based house or build or whatever you want to call it, let me know in the comments. And you can also follow me on Twitter. But that's enough for now. Thank you so much for joining me. And until the next, have a day.